And any idea that wasn't accepted by the Vatican led to torture and death, at least imprisonment and repression. We have the same thing today, but now it's the state, the governments, the corporations that are doing the inquisitions and the repressions of the people. Millions and millions of humans die on this planet every year through the system of rule, through the force of law. And we really haven't understood as humanity what is the central problem we are dealing with. And I think it all has to do with being one-sided, rational. I think rational thinking, being one-sided, is what creates what we call the patriotic, or the masculine society, paternal society, where men oppress and repress women, where men are the controlling factors of power on this planet. It's been that way at least ever since the Garden of Eden, I presume. When we analyze rational thinking in contrast to emotional thinking, this mirrors the two-sided split of specialization in the left brain and right brain, which was discovered by Sperry Rand, or Roger Sperry is what his name was, who got the Nobel Prize for this work in the end of the 1950s, 60s. He discovered that each hemisphere of the brain had very highly specialized attributes once it was developed. Normally, the left brain hemisphere represents functions and specializations that have to do with rationalization. All rational processes, for example, clock time, language, mathematics, abstract thinking, symbolism, objectifying, weighing, putting things in different orders, strategies, all of that has to do with fragmentation as a specialization. Also, sequential logic is an important part of the rational mind. And our scientific model today uses only rational principles in the makeup of its model, in the fundament of science. The emotional mind works on processes that are totally different. They can be thought of as defragmentation. They're pulling all the parts together again. Timelessness, literal thinking, sensory perception, emotions, metaphor, isomorphic understanding, creativity, and another kind of logic that is simultaneous logic. Now, most people have never heard of simultaneous logic. The idea has been repressed, but I can guarantee you that every emotion, every function of the right brain hemisphere, the emotional mind, uses simultaneous logic. It is instant. It scans the entire database at one time. And instead of using math, it uses geometry. Within the premise of geometry, you have also infinity. Mathematics doesn't really deal with infinity. It's a kind of a scary prospect. And also timelessness deals with infinity in a way. So our emotional mind is about the big picture. And there's one thing you really need to think about very clearly, and that is the fact that since the rational mind works solely on the principles of fragmentation, taking apart the whole, if the whole did not exist, there would be no rational mind at all. That also means that without sensory perception, there would be no language. There would be no information for the rational mind to fragment at all. So it is actually the emotional mind that is the mother to the rational mind. The rational mind is born of the emotional mind. So how, tell me, can the rational mind be superior to the emotional mind? It is also well known that the rational mind alone has resources that the emotional mind doesn't have, and the emotional mind has resources the rational mind doesn't have. The rational resources, the most important ones, are willpower. Otherwise, the rational mind is very weak. It has only short-term memory. It needs to sleep and rest. And it deals with the emotions normally associated with fear. Fear of loss. The emotional mind has responsibility for the life force energy, long-term memories, and a host of properties I won't even begin to talk about in this film blog because it'll take too long time. But let me tell you that the emotional mind has so many resources that it's a long, long list, and it takes quite a while to talk about each one and understand what it really does. But to make this story a little bit shorter, because the emotional mind is actually superior, also its form for logic is superior, simultaneous logic will always be superior to sequential logic. Sensory information, which is also analog, will be always more superior to the digital, mathematic, or language communication. Words only represent real sensory experiences. They are not the same as the experiences themselves. So words are secondary. Because the rational mind is actually secondary to the emotional mind, but because it has willpower, instead of using that willpower to dominate, it needs to discover using willpower to serve and protect. The man needs to serve and protect the woman. The masculine needs to serve and protect the feminine. The government needs to serve and protect the people, and the rational mind needs to serve and protect the emotional mind. It all fits together, and this is what humanity really needs to discover in the times of troubles that we are going through today. We have dealt with a race of humans on this planet that have felt it was their God-given right to dominate all the other humans. They're the ones that today own the media industry. They own Facebook. They own the war industry, the chemical industry, the food industry, the medical industry, the politics, the money. And they think they deserve this role. However, they're in deep shit today. Most of them really know they're in deep shit. Because at an individual level, when ego, or the one-sided rational mind, keeps on dominating over the emotional, sooner or later, the emotional mind is going to make so much sabotage, because it is stronger, controlling life force energy. It will knock over willpower and shut it down. The same thing is going to happen between the government and the people. The owners of all these industries and the people. Because the controllers on this planet are a lot fewer, and they have to rest. They don't realize that because there are so many people on this planet, there's always someone awake and aware